Having recently ascended the English throne, King Henry IV hopes for a peaceful reign. He's tired of civil war and bloodshed in England. Will it ever end? At a council meeting, the king receives news about recent battles. English soldiers have been slaughtered by the Welsh and the Scots. In Wales, the king's cousin Mortimer has been taken prisoner by Owen Glendower. He's a renowned Welsh warlord, dark magician, and sworn enemy of King Henry. But the battle against the Scots has had a more positive outcome thanks to young Harry Percy, that gallant northern warrior. They don't call him Harry Hotspur for nothing. King Henry wishes his own son, Hal, was as dashing as Hotspur. Hal's still in his party boy era and a major embarrassment to the king. Then again, that cheeky Hotspur refuses to hand over his Scottish prisoners to the king. They're worth a mint in ransom, and the king would like to collect. Is Hotspur's uncle, the troublesome Earl of Worcester, teaching his nephew bad habits? While King Henry stews about this, Prince Hal is larking about with his pal Falstaff. Sir John Falstaff is a disgraced nobleman who loves Hal like a son, probably because Hal bankrolls his life of debauchery. Their next adventure will be to commit a robbery at Gads Hill, a notorious hotspot for banditry. But Ned Poins, Hal's other close friend, will make a practical joke out of it. After Falstaff and the others have robbed their victims, Hal and Poins will don disguises and rob them of their stolen loot. What a hoot! When Hal is alone, he reveals a different side of himself. He'll go along with this madcap lifestyle for now, but he plans to turn his life around. He's going to shock everyone with this glittering transformation. Will he keep this private promise? A short time later, at Windsor Castle, the king has a tense meeting with Harry Hotspur, his father, the Earl of Northumberland, and uncle, the Earl of Worcester. It's not long before the king dismisses Worcester for insolence. The king is asserting his power, but Hotspur still refuses to hand over his Scottish prisoners, unless the king pays for Mortimer's ransom. It's a bold move, and the angry king refuses. He thinks Mortimer is a traitor who's cozied up with Glendower. Meeting over. Hotspur is enraged, and the only way his father and uncle can calm him down is to reveal a secret plan. Worcester is plotting a rebellion against King Henry, and the time has come to make it happen. The Percys put Henry on the throne, and they'll pull him down again. Back on the mean streets of England, another plot is unfolding, the Gads Hill robbery. A career highwayman, also named Gads Hill, is gathering intel for the job. He'll meet up with Falstaff and the lads later on to rob some cashed-up travellers. It turns out they're tax collectors carrying the king's money. Cha-ching! The robbery itself goes pretty smoothly. The terrified travellers hand over the money to Falstaff and co. without a fight. Then, when Hal and Poins jump out at the gang, they flee and abandon their loot. To be fair, Falstaff fights for a few seconds, but then he screams for mercy and runs away. Hal and Poins laugh so hard they can barely breathe. What will Falstaff say about this when they all meet up at the tavern later? No doubt Hotspur would never do anything so silly. He's never silly. All he thinks about is war and honour. Even now, the rebellion against King Henry is taking up all his time and energy. His wife, Lady Percy, has noticed how distracted and distant he's been, although he won't say why. Has her brother Mortimer been stirring the pot over his title and claim to the English throne? Hotspur won't say. All he tells her is that he's leaving to go somewhere, and she'll follow him tomorrow. She agrees to go along with it because she loves him. What choice does she have? But let's head back to the Boar's Head Tavern. That'll lighten the mood. When Falstaff and the gang finally stumble in, Hal and Poins pretend to be shocked by their ragged appearance. Goodness, what happened? Falstaff proclaims that after the robbery, they were ambushed by an army of bandits. He fought valiantly for hours, but to no avail. The loot is gone. When Hal finally reveals the truth, Falstaff keeps his cool. Without missing a beat, he boasts that he knew it was Hal all along, and now they all have heaps of cash to party with. But before they can celebrate, a message arrives from the palace. Hal must go to his father in the morning. The Percys have rebelled and the king needs support. To help Hal prepare, Falstaff and Hal treat the tavern to a hilarious royal role play. But during the skit, Hal drops a major hint that he intends to turn his back on everyone, including Falstaff. Then, the sheriff shows up, so everyone hides, except Hal. Some highway robbers have been traced to this tavern, and they're looking for a giant, fat man. Hal covers for Falstaff and promises to send him in the morning to answer the charge. Well, the party's over. Hal will face his father tomorrow, and everyone must prepare to fight and defend the crown, even Falstaff. Now we cut to Glendower's castle in Wales. The rebels are meeting to negotiate their share of English soil once they defeat King Henry. Hotspur's there, as are Worcester, Mortimer, and Owen Glendower. But Hotspur's ego clashes with Glendower's, which sidetracks the discussion. Eventually, the rebels come to an agreement, and their wives join them to celebrate. Oh, by the way, Mortimer has just married Glendower's daughter, even though she speaks no English and he doesn't speak Welsh. Maybe King Henry was right about Mortimer. Hotspur struggles to relax and enjoy the evening's entertainment. He's not much for music, unless it's a war drum. Back at the royal palace, Hal is facing the music as well. The king expresses his total shame and disappointment in his son. He's also nervous about the growing rebellion in the north, especially now that Hotspur has the Welsh and Scots on his side. In fact, he wouldn't be surprised if Hal ran away and joined Hotspur's cause. But Hal sincerely wants to win back his father's love. He vows to either defeat Hotspur or die trying. The king is impressed by this and gives Hal a chance to prove himself. War is coming, and Hal will have a leading role to play. Back at the Boar's Head Tavern, Falstaff's in a bad mood and picking on the staff. He's obviously hungover, resentful about his debts, and nervous about the robbery charge. Finally, Hal shows up and diffuses the tension. The stolen tax money is all paid back, and the charges have been dropped. Phew! Although Falstaff now has a different kind of charge, he'll be leading an infantry company in the upcoming Battle of Shrewsbury. Hal has suddenly become a very sober and competent leader. He starts ordering around his old drinking buddies, and they jump to attention. Get cracking, boys. England is burning, and Hotspur must be put in his place. Meanwhile, Hotspur and his rebel army are assembling at Shrewsbury. He's pumped for battle, especially now that he's got his old enemy, Douglas the Scot, on his side. But there's some bad news. Hotspur's father, the Earl of Northumberland, is sick and can't join them. This is a blow. They really need Northumberland's army. Worcester is worried, but Hotspur and Douglas shrug it off. Then Sir Richard Vernon brings more bad news. The king's army is 3 times bigger than theirs. Prince Hal has transformed into a fearsome war god, and Glendower won't be joining the rebels for another 2 weeks. Despite his clear disadvantage, Hotspur remains confident. The battle will go ahead, and if they all die, so be it. The king's forces are now also gathering, including Falstaff and his limping band of beggars. His soldiers are basically cannon fodder, mostly drafted out of jails. Hal is not impressed. Back at the rebel camp, Team Hotspur receive a visit from Sir Walter Blunt, one of King Henry's loyal knights. He has an offer from the king. Lay down your weapons, abandon the rebellion, and you'll all be given full pardons. But Hotspur doesn't trust the king. He turned his back on the Percy family and has broken promises in the past. Hotspur sends Sir Walter back without an answer. Uncle Worcester will visit the king tomorrow morning for another chat. Little does Hotspur know that another powerful ally is backing out of the Battle of Shrewsbury, the Archbishop of York, who was enthusiastic about the rebellion at first, now has cold feet. He knows the rebels are outnumbered and believes they're headed for disaster. He's sending urgent letters to all his friends to let them know. Back at Shrewsbury, Worcester and the king meet to parley, but they don't see eye to eye. The rebels are firm in their cause. Hal bravely offers to fight Hotspur one-on-one to avoid open battle, but the king forbids it. Instead, he tells Worcester to go back to Hotspur and reiterate his offer of a full pardon. But if they don't surrender, King Henry will crush this entire rebellion. Afterwards, Hal says he's sure they won't back down. The king agrees and commands everyone to prepare for battle. Falstaff isn't loving this. He's not interested in dying, nor does he care about honour. It's an empty idea anyway. When Worcester returns to the rebel camp, he lies to his nephew. Worcester would rather go to war than trust the king's pardon. So, instead of relaying the king's offer, he reports that the king has no mercy and will attack them soon. When Douglas sends back the rebels' message of defiance, it doesn't take too long for the king to launch his attack. To war! Trumpets blare, swords clash, and blood is spilled. Douglas the Scot hunts the king, killing all decoys dressed in the king's clothing. This includes the valiant Sir Walter Blunt. When he finally meets the king, Douglas quickly overpowers him, endangering his life. Luckily, Hal charges in to rescue his father. He's so fierce that Douglas runs away. The king is very proud of Hal and assures him that all is forgiven. He is redeemed. But there's no time for joy. The rebels are stronger than expected, and Hotspur is still on the warpath. Speak of the devil, Hotspur confronts Hal for their long-awaited showdown. As they fight, Falstaff cheers Hal on until he's challenged by Douglas. All it takes is one blow, and Falstaff is on the ground, playing dead so that Douglas leaves. Then, to Hotspur's horror, Hal delivers a fatal blow. As he dies, Hal uses part of his own uniform to gently cover Hotspur's mangled face. Then, he turns to see his old friend Falstaff dead on the ground. What a sad and sorry sight. When he's alone, Falstaff stands up, dusts himself off, and concocts a plan. He stabs Hotspur in the thigh and throws the corpse over his shoulder. He'll claim that Hotspur wasn't dead, just tired, like Falstaff. When they both stood up, they fought for an hour, and Falstaff prevailed. Falstaff hopes to be given royal honours and live happily ever after. He really is the ultimate con man. When he finds Hal, Falstaff assures him that he's not a ghost and boasts of his triumph over Hotspur. Hal knows Falstaff is lying, but agrees to reward him anyway. After all, what are friends for? Listen, the rebels are retreating. It's victory for King Henry. As punishment for their dishonesty, the king orders the execution of Worcester and Vernon. As for Douglas the Scot, he was captured while trying to flee. With the king's consent, Hal orders for him to be freed as an act of mercy. This battle may be won, but the war isn't over. The king must now divide his army to fight on two fronts, one in the north, the other in Wales. He won't stop until this rebellion is crushed. And that's the end of King Henry IV, Part 1. Will the rebellion survive Hotspur's death? Will Hal stay in his father's good books? And will Falstaff finally become a respectable nobleman? We're sorry to leave you on such a cliffhanger, but if you really want to know what happens, go make Shakespeare proud and grab a copy of Part 2. We hope you enjoyed this Schooling Online production. For more easy lessons, check out our other videos.